Hello you guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the Narcissistic Abuse series. In today's video, I'm going to be telling a story or a few about other people's dealings with a narcissist. So I'll get straight into that. Oh, and please, if you haven't yet, please subscribe if you're interested in these videos. So, a few years ago, I thought that I had met the love of my life. She was everything I could have asked for. Or so I thought. It turns out that I was unknowingly involved in a relationship with a sociopathic narcissist who mentally and emotionally used and abused me for her own personal sick satisfaction. And yes, that's what they do, is they abuse you for their own satisfaction. It all started one day when she came into where I worked. We started to chat, and the next thing I knew, we were exchanging phone numbers and organizing our first date together. For the first couple of months, everything went smoothly. Around me, her friends and family, she would act all nice and sweet. People would often make comments like, "She is such a lovely, sweet person. You are so lucky." That is what mostly attracted me to her. But after a while and behind closed doors, she would completely change into some sort of monster and use a technique called trauma bonding, which basically was used to control me by using scare tactics into believing what she wanted me to believe about her. Yeah, trauma bonding, you'll hear about it all online. Like if you have Instagram and you follow narcissistic abuse pages, you'll learn a lot about narcissists and you'll relate with a lot of that, and it'll help you for sure. So the real trauma began after the relationship ended 2 years ago, when she told me that she was leaving me for her ex-boyfriend, whom she has been having an emotional affair with for several months behind my back. When I confronted her about it, she tried to blame it on me by saying I was the reason she left and she needed to go back to him. That's the thing. Narcissists will always blame you for everything. Nothing is their fault. That's what they believe. At that point, I started to look back on the relationship and wondered what I did wrong. On closer inspection, things didn't quite add up. The many times she contradicted herself, where she said she didn't match her where what she said didn't match her behavior. That too. They always do that. She would tell the same story twice with 2 different endings. You must be thinking, why did I not pick up on these things while we were together? Simply put, narcissists spend many years crafting their trade so that they are able to control their victims and make them feel so secure and scared at the same time to question anything they say or do in fear that the relationship will end. Effectively, it is a form of Stockholm Syndrome. Unfortunately, I fell victim to this. After I confronted her with all the information I had gathered, she again turned around and blamed me for her actions and made herself look like the victim. After I pushed harder to try and get her to see the error of her ways, which was a huge mistake on my part, she started a smear campaign to try and turn everyone against me. That happens too. They always talk to people about you, of how bad you are and what you do and how you're this and how you're that, and then they just try to do that to try to turn everyone against you because they want everyone on their side. Thankfully, the people that mattered didn't believe a word she said. Good. During this time, I started developing a few mental health problems, which most of I still deal with on a daily basis. Now, this is the thing, how narcissists will seriously tear every good thing out of you and try to make you like just so miserable and so unhealthy. And they cause so many issues. So the first he talks about is post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah, including nightmares and flashbacks, he says. Depression, anxiety, mainly social anxiety, eating disorder, overeating, alcohol and drug addiction, insomnia, trust issues, self-esteem issues, intimacy issues, like don't like being hugged or touched, suicidal thoughts and tendencies. See how much narcissists can cause? They literally can cause people to die by suicide. That is how awful these people are and how awful their abuse is. There are some days where it is difficult to get out of bed in the morning. Even when I do manage to get myself out of bed, I am physically drained the entire day from having to deal with all this. The reason I am telling you my story is not for attention, for people to feel sorry for me, or for people to treat me any differently. And that's something about mental health and mental illness. People think that people talk about it because they want attention. But that is so not true. People talk about it because they need support and they need some help and they need someone to talk to. And also, for the reason I do the same, is to show people you're not alone, and to show people that there are other people out there who are experiencing similar things, so that you can talk to them about the same thing and they're going to be able to understand you better than anyone who hasn't been through the same thing. We don't want attention. We want to help people, and we want to share our stories so that other people know that they're not alone. So he says, I'm sharing my story because I want to get the word out there that if you are struggling with any form of mental illness, it's okay to ask for help. Talk to a professional, friend, or family member that you trust. Take medication if you need so. Go for a walk on the beach. Do whatever you can do to help yourself feel better. You're not any less of a person if you need to ask for help about your mental health. Andrew F. Now, I found this online, and this is just a beautiful thing that he's doing. The strength that he has to post this online, let alone talk about it, is just immense, and it's just amazing. So thank you, Andrew. Now, I am talking about these stories because I want to show people that other people, maybe you can relate to these stories, and maybe it can help you. So I want to be able to show you that other people are going through such similar things, and those people can be anywhere around you. So the more that you can know that people are going through this similar thing, the more that it can help you to be able to speak to someone and to know that you're really not alone. So let's get into it. So another story I found. The moment I knew I had to leave my narcissistic boyfriend when he gaslighted me. I knew I had to leave 4 months in. I'd experienced a love bombing and thought we were falling in love. But for some reason, I always had concerns and held back while I kept my own life going. Over time, I learned that my concerns weren't for naught. I found out he'd been an excessive cocaine user for years. Although according to him, he pretty much stopped when with me. I didn't agree with it. And then he credited me for making him deal with life. He drank a lot at first, which I didn't like, as I've gone out with an alcoholic in the past, but then he seemed to cut down. He admitted he had cheated on his ex-wife several times. That knocked me sick, and I pulled him on this and told him how shocked I was. He didn't seem to have much empathy towards his ex-wife at all. And that's one thing, they usually don't have empathy at all. They feel nothing for anyone else. He was always banging on about exes, calling them psychos and worse. That's the thing. They will insult their supply and the people who don't serve them perfectly as they would like. And even if you do serve them just as they'd like, they still will talk so badly about you. Explaining domestic issues and fights that they had. I'd had enough. I was making subtle hits for him to stop. Anyway, after 4 months of me playing it cool and kind of cringing a little bit about the love bombing, I actually started to expect a little more. He went all distant and became very unreliable with plans he'd made with me. Of course, when I tried to bring this up, he became so angry with me. Plus, he used his son as an excuse and to guilt me. They always try to guilt trip you, all the time. He was totally unreasonable. I got the silent treatment. The silent treatment is so typical. If the narcissist isn't happy with you, silent treatment. He was telling me I was angry when I wasn't. Just upset. They made a typo here. Anyways, by his uncaring behavior. I felt all of a sudden so anxious. I was totally walking on eggshells when I thought he was smitten with me. I googled something, and the pattern of the courtship, his chaotic behavior he admitted to, and shocker, this personality matched the traits of a narcissist. I knew I had to leave. I mean, unless he suddenly showed me he'd had a personality transplant. Yeah, I wish that was possible. Well, he never did, of course, and we both just stopped talking with each other. The fallout for me was very upsetting, but I've never said a word to him. I knew I could not resolve conflict with him, and looking back, he had hinted about me seeing his bad side, and how he'd be heartbroken if we ever argued. Nowadays, I can see how me pulling him up and having an opinion made me not very agreeable in his mind. He wanted me to be his girl and had warned me I couldn't get my way all the time. This after he canceled other arrangements. It was just really odd behavior, but looking back, I realize now that I didn't see it at the time. Well, to this person, even if you didn't see it at the time, you see it now and you're gone, so good for you. And I don't mean good for you to the people who leave, because sometimes people can't leave. And good for you too, because you realize that you can't leave and you're doing this for yourself, which is also hurting yourself, but you at least realize that the person is a narcissist and that it's not you. So, good job to everyone who deals with a narcissist. So the last story for this video is titled, "The Moment I Knew I Had to Go No Contact with My Narcissist Family When My Father Committed Suicide." I left my family for good after my father died, and I saw how heartless they truly were. He barely had a funeral, and they were 20 times more concerned with getting the money he left. The only reason they gave the I'm not gonna say this because I don't swear on my channel, but half-butted funeral they did was so their name can be on papers to get his stuff. They felt no remorse whatsoever for the trouble they caused him, or even the fact that he was gone or killed himself. I'm reading this as killed himself because that's the way that they're putting it, but I always like to say died by suicide. They read his suicide letter, which they had the biggest shout out in, and oh my gosh, and nothing, they spun it around as he was just crazy. I don't even know what to say, because he died by suicide. He was so in pain because of these people, as they said about the biggest shutout, which means he talked about them mostly in the suicide note, which shows that they were a huge cause of his pain. And they just call him crazy. My sister got over $100,000 from his death and screwed over everyone else in the end. And when we found out the rest of the family didn't bother to get him even a $200 tombstone and said it wasn't her problem and to let someone else pay for it. I noticed they only pretended to care in front of me because in the end I was closer to him. They figured he had told me stuff, I guess. They completely disregarded my sister as a person while everything was being planned. We used it to our advantage while we were fighting them. Of course, I got a shout out in the letter too, so at the time I did say a million times I didn't want any of the money. In my mind, I didn't deserve it because I felt like I could have saved him and I didn't. I was too busy all the time dealing with all the narcissist bull beep. All I had known, if I had seen that hotel room just a few hours before I did, I never would have left him there. Anyway, I guess it was then I realized my whole life I've most likely been living with sociopaths. It was like at that moment I suddenly recognized that I had been at the mercy of sociopaths my whole life. I guess I should be lucky I only came out with nerve issues and anxiety, because I know for a fact that I just barely missed a lot worse. Once everything was done, I went no contact. But every now and then, they find flying monkeys. Last year was the last time I saw one, I think. I wanted to get my niece and my brother out now. It's hard. So that is that person's story, and that is extremely unfortunate that because those people were narcissists, that the man died by suicide. And that is just heartbreaking, because It's just so hard with narcissists, and they don't ever realize that they're the ones with the problem. They're the ones who need help, and yet they call him crazy. It's just, wow. That was a heavy one. But yeah, so I hope that if you are dealing with a narcissist, that now you can really see that there are many people out there that are there for you, understanding what narcissists are like and understanding the abuse, and that you can talk to people. And I, for one, you can talk to as well. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day, and I hope that you can begin healing and helping yourself through this awful time with the narcissist. Take care.